Okay, welcome everybody to this lunchtime webinar, the new Somerset Emotional Wellbeing Programme. And we're delighted we've got members of the team who've put together the latest set of resources and offers that have been developed over the last year and a bit across the whole of health and care, and more recently across primary care. It's going to run for an hour, 1 to 2. As before, this is a webinar, and it's an essential introduction for anybody, either as a professional, a manager, team leader, employer and supervisor, so you can know a bit more about this important initiative. Professional well-being and the well-being of the workforce has never been more important, both recovering and continuing with the stresses and strains of COVID, and also recovering service and looking after ourselves through our own illnesses and problems, as well as maintaining service and care to patients. So we're going to hear about the new Resilience Hub. We're going to hear about the website and podcasts, the mental health advice line and Shiny Minds app, accessible training to skills and tools to help colleagues and self, such as thinking, pit stops and react. We're going to hear a bit about the coaching capacity and provision in primary care, which is very underprovided compared to other sectors across the Somerset health system. We're going to make mention that we're trying to impact across all the 4 contractor groups in primary care. So that's medical, dentistry, optometry and pharmacy, but we're also focusing support and help where need is highest. And through all these things, we're going to achieve a sustainability through positive leadership and culture, proven results and long-term funding that will be able to support colleagues both now and in the long term. Today's contributors: David Seeley, who's a commissioning manager for the CCG for adult mental health and dementia, and Andrew Tresidder, who's a GP and an NHS staff health and self-care teacher and champion, and will be well known to a lot of you in the room. Lorna Stewart is one of the architects and deliverers of the service, but can't be here today, and I'm Martin Hughes, the Training Hub. I'll put my email there, but you know how to get hold of us through the Training Hub at the LMC offices. But anything that crops up today that you want to follow up, just let me know and we'll sort it out. So this is a mix of presentation and questions and answers, but you'll know that you're all muted and we can neither see nor hear you because it's been recorded for later consumption via the SGPET website. So please put any questions you have in the Q&A box and not the chat box, so that everyone can see them. And if you want to identify yourself as you ask your question, that's good too. Questions will be answered in the Q&A box. By the presenters as we go along if possible, and in the final part of the session if time allows. Any unanswered questions will be considered afterwards, and we'll share answers to those. The presentation, the video podcast, will be available later via the SGPET website. And for those of you who don't know how to navigate that, SGPET courses, and pick past courses as opposed to future courses, and the retrospective calendar will come up and allow you to click on this event. Issues raised will be followed up by our teams to ensure everyone gets helpful information, advice and support. And you may well get 4 questions asked to you in the exit survey as you leave Zoom, and that'll be helpful for you to complete. Okay, so, and we want you to go home knowing how to use this service. So I'm now going to hand over to Andrew Tresidder, who will raise his slide set, and then we'll make a start. Andrew?
Thank you very much, Martin, and welcome to David as well. Thank you for your warm welcome. Let's start my video so you can see me. Hello, over in South Somerset today, sunny South Somerset. I'm not sure what it's like for everybody there, but very warm welcome. And I welcome my colleague, David.
Oh, yeah, hello, Andrew. Hello, everybody. Nice to be here.
David Seeley from Yeovil. So if I can share a slide set, if I may, let's just... Martin, could you allow me to share the slide set on your controls a sec, please? I think you're host at the moment, so you may need to make me co-host. Thank you. And I know that everybody here is from right across primary care, and we welcome colleagues, not just from traditional primary care, as we would think of GP land, but dentists, optometrists and pharmacists as well, because this offer is actually for the whole of primary care, recognising that we all work together and we all stand together and we all manage these difficult times together, or we have challenges and difficulties. And together is a good way to move forward, particularly as we move into an ICS. Martin, I'm just sharing some slides. Would you be kind enough to talk to the first one?
Sure. So I'm just going to talk to this first one. Please do make them a full screen, but I just want to say that the ideas of the projects we've got together to develop health and wellbeing support offers for Somerset's primary care workforce are about impact, inclusion and sustainability. The slides, I know there's some text there that you'll only be able to read when you come to download it, but impact because we recognize that people need help now. Inclusion because we want to reach out right across the 4 contractor groups, and sustainability because it's important that as our pilot funding from NHS comes to a halt, that we have proven and demonstrated impact that cannot be denied by local commissioners, resources and funders, so that all the services will continue. An example would be that we have commissioned and bought in some training around some key important tools that can enable people to improve self-care, improve the care of colleagues and the support for others, around thinking pit stops, emotional logic, some React, Connect 5, and Andrew will explain a bit about these in a minute. But to include all those offers are going out right across, as I said, through the LMC, through the LOC, LDC and LPC, to everybody in primary care, so all the 4 main contractor groups. But to do it in a sustainable way, not only are we commissioning the delivery of training from national experts, but we're also using those opportunities to develop our own trainers in those tools and skill sets, so that therefore we can go on to provide this training in more flexible, accessible ways right across the county. So there are fixed dates for training, but there will be dates which will be able to flex around your own needs and your own structures and programs. It's important to say that we are, making universal offers, but we are focusing on certain groups. There are certain groups of people who are taking on increased loads at the moment, absorbing new roles, taking on the supervision of people right across professional boundaries. So these things are being included as we are addressing those whose access to services is limited due to a whole pile of things. It may be geography, it may be their understanding, it may be their place in the system. And that's really, really important for us. And the project has, good endorsement. All the major professional leaders have endorsed this project, and we will continue to build on that. And simply by developing sort of wellbeing champions across the professional groups, across the senior committees, but also in smaller organisations, because we recognise that although we can look quite longingly and jealously at the levels of wellbeing support and secondary care, a lot of that doesn't translate as effectively as well to the small scale status of the smaller units that exist in primary care. So to have champions and wellbeing who understand those contexts and understand the problems of those organisations is really important to us. So impact, inclusion, sustainability, and back to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Martin. And just to pick up the last comment that you made, it would be wonderful if every business, every practice, every area had its own wellbeing lead or wellbeing champion, because we're on a journey. And the journey is 20 years ago, health of the workforce. What's that? 4 reports from the Department of Health in 2008 to 2010 showed that actually an awful lot of health professionals are hidden patients, but do not present being unwell or being ill. We've certainly seen what's happened with an already tired and exhausted workforce because they're working right at full capacity. And so 2020, 2021, there is a central government and elsewhere realization that workforce are exhausted and leaving. What can we do about it? And so we in Somerset have been very lucky to win some bids. We're on this journey. 10 years time, workforce wellbeing will be embedded. It'll be infused throughout training, recruitment, job plans, and everywhere. Maybe we'll have a wellbeing hour, either on a regular basis through the week or divvied up through the week so that we spend time. But if we don't have proactive approaches to physical, mental, and emotional well-being, this is what happens. We fall off a cliff. And of course, the whole of the NHS is wonderful at dealing with car accidents, but not necessarily at the prevention of car accidents. And I use car accidents as a metaphor for what we learn professionally. We learn about the disasters, the difficulties, and the pathology, not how to help physiology go well, not how to help ourselves maintain well-being. Health is harmony of mind, body, and spirit in one vernacular definition, and in another one, it's the WHO definition, which it is a state of complete mental and social and emotional well-being and physical well-being, not merely the absence of illness. So we're a long way from thinking about that for ourselves. There's a wheel of approaches which are important to look at our health generally. And before we look at some of the specific initiatives, I'd just like to share with us that we are hardware body and software being, but we are a hardware body that is a mammalian hardware body, and a lot of its systems are shared with other mammals. Now we see some cows grazing somewhere in Somerset, and as you can see, 3 of them are quite inquisitive and the others are grazing, but they're all on parasympathetic drive. They're all on rest, chill, and digest, if we remember our autonomic nervous system from GCSEs and from a long way back. Unfortunately, human beings seem to spend an awful lot of their time on sympathetic drive, adrenaline, dry mouth, sweaty palms, raised heart rate, and blood pressure, I see, not just blood pressure, anxiety, and maybe a little bit of excitement, tunnel vision, and threat focus. And I would invite all of you, just at this point, you may have had a busy day, you may be at the start of your day, you may be in the evening, just to sit comfortably, to have your spines comfortable, feet flat on the floor, and to just take 3 slow, regular, rhythmic, diaphragmatic breaths. Because by doing this, it puts us back onto parasympathetic. You see, sympathetic drive is characterized by shallow, rapid upper chest breathing, and perhaps the speaker speaking rather rapidly, and that is not inner stillness and relaxation. So all we have to do to bring ourselves back to the stillness of the breath is to use our breath. The problem if we don't do that is we go to the wrong side of the stress performance curve, and many of us have been there or maybe there at times. We've been working our hardest, there are more demands, we end up hyperreactive and we end up exhausted. Recognizing all of this sort of pathology at the start of the pandemic, Somerset CCG set up a pastoral care cell, and at the start it was enthusiasm but no money at all. But because we had enthusiasm and partnerships, Larch is reaching out to care homes hosted at Yeovil Hospital, we were able to get a number of key stakeholders, including David, including Lorna Stewart, including a number of others from right across the system, to be able to share SFT's strategy and to look at a universal minimum offer. And we started with a resource matrix and some podcasts. And David, we'll come back to that in a few minutes and give you a slot to tell us about the podcast, because I think those are rather important. The bids we won, because we were early in the area of well-being, and because we had a system, we won our first bid, which was a mental health resilience hub, and that's enabled us to finance a colleague support line, more about which later, and that's got recurrent funding, I'm pleased to say, so the system wants us to invest recurrently. We've also won 2 one-year only bids, and the first of these is the enhanced occupational health and well-being. It gives us admin support, and it gives us and Heidi may be on the call today, it gives us a leader and it gives us a training lead. And through this, we've invested in Shiny Minds app, React mental health training, emotional logic, coaching and employee assistance programs, and some other things. And I'll share a little bit about those presently. Primary care resilience, and that's today's focus. We're looking at sector leads, champions for each of the medical primary care and the dental and the optometrist and the pharmacist, and that's in train at the moment. We're investing in thinking pit stops, in emotional logic, in coaching, and in Connect 5 training. And Shiny Minds is part of the universal offer, and I'll cover each of these in turn. Shiny Minds, briefly. Some of you may have come across this, seen the posters or seen the comms out about it. It's a free app. It's got some really, really useful trading material on it. It's brought to you by the Somerset's ICS. One of the masterclasses is in the drama triangle, and I recommend that to you. That's the drama triangle of victim, rescuer, persecutor, because we so often find ourselves in that. And all of these resources, I hope, David, that I'm right, can be seen in the Somerset Emotional Wellbeing.org hub, but we'll come to that presently. If you want to do a screenshot now of the next slide, which I've skipped over, that's the QR code to register for Shiny Minds. And I'll just leave that on the screen for just a moment for those of you who wish to capture it. I wonder how many permutations there are of those possible black and white dots. So early on, early in 2020, that seems ages ago, we developed the Resilience Hub, and the colleague support line, which we'll talk about in a minute, is one of the major areas to be financed from that. And we started a website as a matrix, and we have now got a proper website, which I would commend to you, the somersetemotionalwellbeing.org, because there's a lot of information on there relevant to every specialty and every area of the ICS, and also to give training offers. And if you like podcasts, our producer, David, who's also a mental health commissioning manager, but a skilled journalist and producer and podcast engineer, has enabled us to record over 50. So thinking about the colleague support line, David, should we do a mix and match on this? Do you want to talk about this as well at the same time? Or shall I just carry on through?
Andrew, if you want, I can talk about these, because if you run the slides, I've got Lorna, to be open and honest with everybody. Lorna Stewart was going to do this bit, so we'll do our best to cover her, and I'll use her notes to give you what she would have said, or at least 80% of what she would have said, if that's okay.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, cool. All right, so so basically in March 2020, as Andrew said, Lorna's team at SFT were doing some work around the pandemic as it began as well. She said, when we realized that the UK was having growing cases of COVID and we were actually in a pandemic, there was increasing concern for the psychological as well as the physical impacts on our colleagues. And this is from a Somerset Foundation Trust perspective first, before it became widened out to the entire health and care ecosystem in Somerset. We'll get onto that in a minute. We knew that we had SFT already had a stretched workforce, and it was likely that the workforce would have high exposure to pandemic trauma and excess deaths. There was a lot of learning about the psychological impacts of previous disease outbreaks, such as SARS and the MERS epidemics. There was also learning from the disaster literature and trauma literature. We were getting early learning from China and Italy, where they had been highly affected by COVID, which was all about the psychological effects on staff. What that told us was that we could safely predict that about 75% of people would cope okay and experience normal distress when faced with a disaster, but that up to 30% of our workforce would be in need of psychological intervention now and up to 5 years beyond. Of that 30%, about 25% experience mild to moderate psychological difficulties, but about 5% really struggle and have severe difficulties. We knew that we really needed to do something, as there were real risks of psychological distress in our colleagues, negative impacts on their experience at work, higher than usual sickness absence rates, and the risk that people would leave the profession. All of this would impact on organisational costs and, most importantly, the care that we could deliver to patients. Next slide, please, Andrew.
Just coming, David. It's waking up.
All right.
It's woken up and skipped. There we are.
There we go. That's the one. That's what we want. Okay, so not only was it the right thing to do to put something in place to protect the psychological health of our colleagues, but there's a really clear link in the literature that we deliver much better quality care for patients when we ourselves have good emotional well-being. The way that we achieve good emotional well-being is by taking care of ourselves, particularly in a crisis. Put simply, you have to take care of yourself to be able to take care of others. And Lorna's put a quote here from Parker Palmer, who said, "Self-care is never a selfish act. It is simply good stewardship. We do so not only for ourselves, but for the many lives we touch."
So it is a question, David, of own oxygen mask first, rather than helping everybody else. And also just ask two questions of our audience today. If you ask 100 people how they are, what do they say? And the answer is a 4-letter word: fine. Fearful, insecure, neurotic, and emotionally imbalanced. So most of us start with a denial mechanism about our own state. If you then ask 100 carers, 100 mothers, 100 managers, 100 people with responsibility, 100 health professionals, how they are, they scratch their heads and they haven't thought about it because they're too busy looking after their responsibility. So that's displacement. So those two Ds, denial and displacement, lead straight into distress, despair, disillusionment, exhaustion, drink, drugs and depression, and various other problems, all of which is avoidable because it's what happens when you fall off the cliff. David, back to you.
Thank you, Andrew. Could you go to the next slide, please?
Yes, we're there now.
Okay, cool. So we created a comprehensive emotional wellbeing strategy that would be fit for the pandemic and beyond, knowing that support would be needed during the pandemic and up to at least 5 years afterwards. This was based on the disaster literature and what was emerging from China and Italy. We wanted to ensure that our colleagues were prepared to face the challenges ahead. We wanted to ensure that we could put in place preventative strategies so that as few colleagues as possible experienced high levels of psychological distress. Where people were distressed, we wanted to make sure that we responded quickly and in the right way. And as the pandemic timeline became clearer, we also knew that we might have to sustain our well-being for some time. And you can see the vision and some of the aims there on the slides. So next slide, please, Andrew.
And here we are, and it was a hope that it would be a sort of a one-off pandemic with a start and then a move forwards and then a resolution, but it's not quite like that. So David, the comments that you'd like to make?
So the guiding principles around the plan, Lorna's team decided whatever the timeline was for the pandemic, whether it was over quickly or, as we are experiencing, is taking years, we needed to make sure that we prepare people right at the start for the likely trauma that they might experience. What we know is that if you can anticipate and plan for difficult and unpleasant experiences and feelings, you are more likely to prevent and deter them. We then knew that we would need to have something in place with ease of access and a rapid response that would sustain positive mental health. So we developed a model which we could wrap around our colleagues' psychological health and well-being, called the stepped care model. So if we go to the next slide, please, Andrew, I believe the stepped care model's there.
Lovely. So level 1.
So yeah, level 1's at the bottom and level 5's at the top. It's a pyramid of need because there's more people at the bottom and less at the top. So Lorna says, we put in place what we described as a step care model. This is based on good practice for setting up services. The reason we use this approach is that the largest amount of people at the base of the model at level 1 will need the greatest amount of support at its lowest level. As you step up the model, the level and complexity of support increases, but the number of people requiring it decreases. So the aim at level 1 was to provide universal offerings to all. At level 2, we were looking to put into place primary prevention approaches like the Anticipate, Plan, Deter leaflet for all. At level 3, we needed intervention that provided rapid access and a rapid response for those who needed it. This is where the colleague support line came into place. And at this point, this was still a SFT specific line, but it is now open to everyone. And we'll get onto that in more detail in a minute. And at levels 4 and 5, we put in place post-vention support for individuals and teams where people were experiencing the greatest difficulties, but that was our 5% of people who we knew would really struggle. Okay, so next slide, please, Andrew.
There we are.
So we had a plan. In the words of Simon Sinek, we knew why we needed to develop a service, we knew how we were going to do it, and what we needed to do. And so the colleague support service and the colleague support line was born. And you can see a breakdown there on the screen of the sort of thinking behind that in a pictorial form. Next slide, please, Andrew. So this slide here just describes the colleague support line and the colleague's journey through the support line, and gives some things to expect. So at the top there, that's the phone number. It's 030, well, let's do it phonetically or correctly, shall we? 0300 124 5595. That phone line is open 7 days a week to all health and care staff in Somerset across all organisations, and it's 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can also schedule a call back at a time that suits you. We wanted to try and make it 24/7, but we haven't quite got there yet. We might do if we can get some more funding in the future. But for now, this is what we have. So 7 days a week, we have availability there. Now, what you can expect when you get through to the colleague support line is a talk with a warm and friendly trained professional in confidence, unconditional positive regard. The call will be non-judgmental. There will be empathy and understanding, because you're getting through to a trained psychologist on the other end of the phone who will immediately be able to help you and knows how to approach this. They will triage you and do a risk assessment. They can provide psychological first aid if needed. They can also give you a rapid access counselling session, which is a 90-minute session if needed. And again, this is all with no waiting list. You just call up and you can get straight through to this. Warm handover to other services if needed, which include talking therapies, open mental health, which I hope you're all aware of, because that's a fantastic new development, but that's my other hat. I'll take that off for now. Crisis teams, bereavement services, housing services, and the domestic abuse service, and it can signpost to self-help materials as well if needed. And that's all also supported with the digital platform, which is our somersetemotionalwellbeing.org website, which I'll get onto in a minute and show you around that a little bit. So next slide, please, Andrew.
Here they all are. Here's our colleague support line professionals.
None of which are me or Andrew, by the way, you'll notice. But yeah, there's Lorna and her team, and Rosie and the rest of the team, who do absolutely fantastic work. So yeah, that's the faces of the people that you will get through to if you call that number. The great team do great work. Can't say enough about how good they are, really. So I do definitely encourage you to get in touch with them if you need any support whatsoever. So next slide, please, Andrew.
And this is the timeline of what's happened. This is mainly an SFT line, because it's not until the right-hand end that we actually have been able to manage to share this with all health and care workers through the Resilience Hub. But
yeah, we went live in June 2020, didn't we, across the whole system, which was good. So we've had 4 months now of it being sort of live, up and running, and we've got quite a lot of good data out of that already, which we are submitting to NHS England. Have already helped, I don't know if the numbers exactly are in here, but I think over 150 people have actually sort of called the line and received good help from them so far, which is really good. So in April 2020, the strategy was shared with the pastoral cell, which was the SFT strategy. Then the colleague support line was staffed by 50 volunteer psychologists across SFT between April and June 2020. In June 2020, the volunteers returned to their business as usual roles. And then from July 2020 to January 2021, the phone line was held by a lady called Dawn Coleman, who basically is super lady, because I think she did it all single-handedly somehow for that period of time. And as Andrew said, this is all prior to it going sort of a county-wide and the investment into it. February 21, there was recruitment of the colleague support service team. And then in May 21, the colleague support line was extended to all health and care workers and volunteers across the Somerset health and care system. And that really started kicking off fully from the 1st of June, I believe. So next slide, please, Andrew.
It's coming gently. There we are. It's skipped one. There we are. Numbers.
Okay. So are we looking at the colleague support line now? Let me just double check.
We're looking at the stats.
Okay, cool. Because my Zoom is, oh yeah, there we go. It's tiny in the corner. I see it. Okay, cool. So yeah, you can see on here some information about how the the breakdown of referrals, so the reasons that people give when they call the phone line. Anxiety is clearly the top one there. Mental health concerns, workplace stress, they're sort of the top 3. Mental health at work, which is sort of related to that, and then a breakdown through other issues. The least common ones are domestic abuse, historical trauma, and accommodation issues. So a big, broad, wide spectrum across all sorts of mental health and well-being conditions, symptoms, and other things that people need help with. And then you can see the number of callers here over time as well, from April 20, which is when the line began. And then in May, that line there where the big purple line is, that's May 21, that's where it all went county-wide across all health and care organisations. So obviously there was a peak and a spike there as the line was promoted with different, you may well have seen business cards and posters and things around it. I hope you have seen them. And if you want any of those, please get in touch with us, because I can provide you with more that promote the line and the website and give you some more information about that. So yeah, please do get in touch if you need any of that information from us. So that's a good breakdown of the history of the line and how we got to where we are today. So Andrew, if we go to the next slide, please.
This gives some idea of how people have done with benefit from it, and pre and post scores for the commonly used general anxiety 7 rating scale and the PHQ-9 rating scale have really shown some quite substantial benefits for people. So it certainly seems to be meeting a need and helping people.
Yes. Well, as you said, Andrew, yeah, this demonstrates that when people call, they have a higher score, and at the end of the call, they have a lower score, which means that their level of need has de-escalated during the course of that call and that intervention, which is obviously the kind of thing we want to see from the responses to people calling the phone line. So that's absolutely fantastic, and again, testimony to the great work that the support line team do there for us. So can we have the next slide, please, Andrew? Thank you very much. So this one is just some feedback from different people who called in. These are genuinely extracts from feedback that they have given. So this is real people who have really used it and what they thought. So I won't read them because I'm sure you're all reading them on the screen now, but it's lovely to have the positive feedback, and just again reinforces that, you know, quantitative information is all well and good, knowing how many people called and knowing that type of information, but having this kind of qualitative feedback where it's actually a narrative story of somebody's opinion and their experiences from their perspective, that's more powerful, I think, in a lot of ways, and demonstrates that it is useful to a lot of people, which is really good.
And that makes all the hard work that went in by a number of people into preparing the bid and winning the bid and then recruiting very much worthwhile.
Definitely. And yeah, we'll continue to collect these case studies. So to let you know as well, at this point, actually, I should say that the line is as anonymous as it can possibly be. So when you call it, they don't take any information really up top from you until if you need to be referred to other services, or if you wish to volunteer that information, you can do. If you're being referred on from there on to, say, talking therapies, for example, they do need to take a little bit more information, but it's really, the whole thing is built around a sort of anonymous, light touch, friendly approach. So yeah, don't be worried about sort of, you know, anything going on the record and things like that, as it were, because the whole thing's built around that. And these examples have been taken with people's permission, so which is fantastic to see. So Andrew, next slide, please, if you can. Thank you. I think this is getting on towards the last one of the ones from Lorna now. So this is a very interesting graph here on the left, and this is sort of taken from, does it say where it's taken from?
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
Lorna would know. It's taken from somewhere else, and very much apologize that we can't give credit to the source of this. Some of you may know, you may have already seen this, but this is the kind of the estimated kind of curve, as it were, or the peaks and troughs through a disaster or through a pandemic, and how the periods of time sort of affect us psychologically as we go through different events and anniversaries and different time frames. So some food for thought there. And there's a lot more than that, and apologies that I can't give you the source of where that's from. I'll get Lorna to email it through if we can next week instead. And this is a bit of information here about the website and the phone line. So again, there's that number 0300 124 5595. Again, call that 7 days a week, 9 to 5 p.m. and you can schedule callbacks to suit you if you have a certain window that you need to talk to somebody in, because we understand obviously you're all very busy professionals and we have to fit around you to an extent as well. And then a little bit of information there about the website, but we'll go into that in a little bit more detail, I think now or in a minute, Andrew.
It's your slot now, David. So
okay.
I think, Martin, are you able to make David a co-host as well? Because I'll stop sharing at this point and I'll start sharing again presently. And then, David, I think you probably want to share your screen and tell us about both the website and the podcast. And I do have one slide to share at some point when it comes to the Somerset emotional wellbeing data.
Yeah, no problem at all. I just can you see my screen now? Can you just see the desktop?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So what we're going to do is, rather than doing this through slides, we're going to do this live. So can you, on your screen now, can you just see my web browser with some wiggly lines on it?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. Because I can see more than that. I've not really done this on Zoom before. I've done it on Teams quite a lot. So just making sure that I know how it's working correctly. So you can see here, this is let's start by looking at the actual website, shall we? So this is what happens when you go to somersetemotionalwellbeing.org. This is the desktop version of the website. It also converts immediately to mobile browsers, and it looks slightly differently on a mobile device, on a phone or a tablet. I really like both versions, but I actually prefer browsing it on the phone. I think it works really, really well on a mobile device. Yeah, whatever you can access it on, you can access it on. The first thing before we do anything else, because I think this is one of the coolest parts and also one of the most useful parts, if you are a non-English primary language speaker, or if you prefer to see it in another language, you can hit the button down here for the Google Translate function, and you can actually select any language that you want from this list. When you select the language, so let's just do Spanish, shall we? What happens is that it simultaneously translates, or it should do, there we go, the entire website, all the text on the website into that language. And you can change that at any time you want. So we did that to obviously include anybody of any background with any primary language to be able to use the website equally with everybody else. So that's a really good piece of functionality that we're very happy about. Then we've got a few different strings to our bow, but the main way that you navigate this, so I'll do that first before we go confusing people with extra things you can do, is you'll see this as the home page. You scroll down slightly, you'll see a little welcome line there. And then you've got the phone number for the support line there as well. There's a link there to Shiny Mind. So if you didn't get that QR code earlier, just go here, hit that link, and you can register for the Shiny Mind app as well through there. So that's just, if you missed that QR code earlier, it's a great resource. I've got Shiny Mind, I actually use it. I've downloaded many of these apps like Headspace, etc., and this is the one that I've actually used. So there's some testimony for you. Now, this is the key bit that really gives the website its main functionality. So you can either start typing where you work or what sector you work in, or you can start typing how you're feeling, and it will filter the search results of all of the different support options, which are local and national support options, to only show you the things that are available to you based on what you type in here. So I'm guessing you guys are probably going to want to see something like primary care. Okay, so you can look for primary care, or you can look for GP. Oh, hello. As you start typing, sorry, general practice even, there we go, let's be proper. As you start typing, it comes up with the option down there, so you can click on there to stop, to save yourself from having to go through typing the entire phrase. So when you do that, it instantly changes the page, and now it's filtered all of the support resources that are in the background here to show you only the ones that are available to people in general practice. So you've got a support line at the top there. You've got the LMC Pastoral Support Service. It will also have any employee assistance programs that are relevant to you near the top. There's the Shiny Mind app again, Somerset Safe House Mindline Somerset, which is a great 24/7 resource open to everybody in Somerset to call at any time for help.
01823 276 892, I believe, David, is on the
podcast. Look at that, eh? Excellent. Somerset Bremer Support Service, blah, blah, blah. So there's loads and loads and loads of stuff on here that you can filter in that way. Now, if you choose to instead, you want to say I'm feeling anxious or angry or annoyed, or let's say depressed, shall we? So let's say depressed, press it again, and all of the support options that are listed in the list below have been tagged with what emotions or feelings they're also appropriate to. So this will now show you all support options that relate to depression. Now, when you do that, some of them may not necessarily be just general practice or primary care, but it will show you all of them there. So I would encourage you to use the I work in function first, because that will give you just stuff that is relevant and open to you. But that's another great way to browse it, by using that there. When you do click through to a support option, so let's just look at the St Margaret's Hospice one, for example. Hit that, it will open it into a new tab for you there. And then you can, when you are finished and you're done over here, you've done your business over here, whatever you wanted to do, you can go back across, and it asks you how useful you found the resource, and you can put any comments you want in that box as well. And we use that information to make sure that the stuff that people find is really useful comes up higher in the search rankings, and the stuff that's not so useful goes to the bottom, and then eventually will drop off if people aren't using it or don't find it good. So we'd love to get your feedback, so please do that if you use the site. Now, there are a few...
Also
Sorry,
on the
Andrew.
site, there's some resources, aren't there, such as training and others.
Oh yeah, don't worry, we'll get into that now. So if you scroll down past those results, then you've got this self-support section here. Now you can search by category as well, so I'll just show you that in a second. This is a sub page which allows you to search in any way you want, so you can search by keywords. You can search by your staff cohort by picking it off a list instead, so you can see a full list. You can select your resource category, so whether you want a website or a phone line or whatever it is, and it will search all of those results and show you just those bits that you'd like there. So that's another good way to browse the site and those support options. We've got down here we go. So we've got links to the podcast. So if you click that, that will take you through to the podcast homepage. Now the podcast homepage, this is where you can find the podcast, but actually exists on everywhere that you get podcasts except BBC Sound. So if you go to Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, any of these providers, you will be able to search for Somerset Emotional Wellbeing and you'll find our podcast, and you can subscribe and like it through there. But if you go to this page, this is our homepage for the podcast, and it's got every episode on there in chronological order. So you can see our latest one is the Looking Back special. We did Reminiscence Learning, Getting Older for people who don't want to talk about it. So we'll get into the podcast a little bit more detail in a minute, but you can also search by episode. So you can type in anxiety, for example, it will show you the ones that have that in the title if you're looking for a specific topic, because there are topics, all sorts of different topics of mental health and wellbeing in there. You can also search the resources on the website by the Wellbeing wheel. And this just gives you another different way to look at it. So if you're looking for emotional or intellectual or physical, because we understand obviously well-being is not just emotional well-being, there are lots of different aspects to well-being. And this enables you to quickly filter all of the support resources and see just the ones that apply there. So for example, if you want to see financial, hit that, and it filters it to show you the one financial one that's in there at the moment. But we're always adding more resources as we go. And there's some really good stuff to be found in there, some really interesting articles and resources. Then there's the training and e-learning page. Now this is really what relates to the Enhanced Occupational Health project and the things that they provide, but we have also put some things in here with thinking pit stops that I'm sure Andrew's going to touch on in a little while. So again, there's a bit about Shiny Mind there, a bit of context at the top, and then if you scroll down from there, you can also sign up for the React mental health training through there, and all other types of training and e-learning that we are going to be adding as we move forwards will be added into this area here, and you can access it through the website anytime you want. There are some more things coming, like we are going to be adding a booking system soon for thinking pit stops interventions and other things as well, so that will be probably in this area as well of the website. Just to say about the website's design as well, it's a really nice job, and we wanted to evoke Somerset as a place to tie it all together, and our developers at Rocketbox did a great job of branding and building our website, so big credit to them because I love the way it looks. And then we also have this, which is the community peer support forum. If you click on that, it'll take you through to a moderated forum provided by Click, not the cancer charity, the other Click, CLIC. They moderate that forum for us, and if you want to connect with any of your peers in the health and care system across Somerset in a safe, moderated way, that's a great way to do it, to get that peer-to-peer support. So, and that's there available to you whenever you need, 24/7 as well. Just a couple other things. We've got the Help Me button at the top. So if you need more urgent help, this will tell you what to do in an emergency, and it's got some great resources there for if you're really feeling in a crisis. We also have links to the Wellbeing Conference that was on last week. Now, this will soon be replaced with links to all of the YouTube videos for all of the different elements that were discussed during that week. And I definitely recommend when that's live, which should be the end of next week, you go on there, have a look at them, because there's some really great talks from some really interesting people across the Somerset system about health and wellbeing. And then you've got the Emotional Wellbeing Survey. This is always here for you. So anytime you want, you can fill this in just to let us know how you're feeling. Some people do it, I think, as a sort of catharsis. So you can pick sort of the top here, how you're feeling using the emoji scale. Now in the background, that actually relates to a number, and that gives an emotional wellbeing score, which is really useful to us to sort of tell us how you're feeling at the moment. Sort of the middle's okay, that's thriving, and that's not coping, basically, at that end over there. And you can also tell us what matters to you most at the moment. Do you know how to get mental health and emotional wellbeing support, what organization you work for, and whether or not you're frontline, basically. Do you work with patients and service users? And that's just there at all times for anybody who wants to. You can use it to tell us about how you're feeling. People do make use of that, even though we're not really promoting that, which is fantastic because it gives us some really good information about what people need. And we do try and react to that. When people answer the what matters to you most question, we take some of the themes that come from that, and then we react to that by creating a podcast episode or some other content. So there is a feedback loop there. for people. So I know I'm probably waffling a little bit here now, so I'm going to just quickly go to the analytics part of the page. Bear with me a minute while I just the Zoom bar is obscuring my Internet Explorer bar at the top there and not letting me get to it. So I'm just going to try and move it around. There we go. Right. Okay, here we go. So this is just some information about how people are using the website. So ever since we put the digital platform live, we get some really great data from it about who's using it and when. So we can see on an average day, we're sort of getting around 30 users on a normal weekday at the moment. And that's since it's gone live, which was here. That was the real go live date at end of May. So yeah, it's been quite consistent. And then our demand views to the website and users of the website has increased quite dramatically during the Wellbeing conference because we were promoting it a lot and people could book through there. So that's really good to see. We had 138 users that day. And we've now had all time 2,565 users. And people are making good use of it, which is fantastic to see. So I just thought you might appreciate seeing a little bit of the back end of the website there, some of the data we get. Now onto the podcast. So I've showed you that already. That's the homepage of the podcast. And some of the episodes that we have on here, there's all sorts of different topics. Great guests, like on the Getting Older one, we had Dr. Lucy Pollock, who's a great author and doctor. She works for SFT. At the moment, we've had lots of different guests. Fiona Mahoney, who's the chief exec of Reminiscence Learning. That was a great episode, wasn't it, Andrew? Really interesting.
Absolutely, yeah.
So full of energy and stories. It's really interesting. And then we did one for World Suicide Prevention Day, for example. We did one on coping with chronic pain. There's episodes on dealing with anxiety, dealing with depression, one about autism, one about surviving a mental health crisis, which the mental health crisis team at SFT helped us to develop, and they actually do prescribe and signpost people to that when they are under their care, which is really great use of it. And if there are any episodes in here which you find useful and you wish to use as a resource to forward people to, that is a brilliant thing. We'd love you to do that. And all of the podcast episodes are actually on their own separate sub pages. So once you click through to one, that link at the top there is unique to this episode, so you can just promote single episodes if you want to people. Just go to this website, listen to this. So it's a really quick way of getting people to that content. And then the last thing here, this is just some for fun, really, some stats from the back end of the podcast. So we've just actually, Andrew, you said 9,000 earlier. We've actually cleared 12,599 listens now, which is absolutely phenomenal, fantastic. So you can see that over time our listenership has grown. And then sort of lately, we've been getting really good high peaks per day, normally around when an episode comes out, but of around sort of 150 to 200 listeners on days. So that's really heartening to see. I'll just show you our top episodes, which is a bit of a spoiler if you're going to listen to episode 50 of the podcast, because we break down our top 10 there. But so you can see some of our more popular episodes have been Deep Dive into Dementia 1, Alcohol and Mental Health, Demystifying the Menopause, which is an absolutely fantastic episode with Dr. Catherine Patrick. And that has been really well received. We've had some great feedback about a member of staff of an organisation that actually listened to that, went back to her GP, and they changed her diagnosis from depression to basically treating her with HRT instead, because she identified she was perimenopausal and she was able to return to work. So a fantastic example of how these can have more of an effect than we may think when we're making them, which is brilliant. Then you can see how people listen. Nobody cares about that. And then you can see, this is always the most fun one, the geographic stats. So like, where in the world are people listening to us? Because they do listen to us all over the world, believe it or not. So all of the countries there that are shaded in sort of a dark pink color are countries where we have had listens at some point or another. But you can see the vast majority of our listeners are from the United Kingdom, 9,847, US, we've had 1,977. So what's that, roughly about 20%, 10%? I don't know. I'm too busy talking to do maths. And then we've got some, I'm sure one of our people listening to this will correct me there. And then Australia, France, Romania, Spain, Canada, lots and lots of places all around the world. And in fact, we're often in the podcast charts in Kazakhstan and Uganda, which is fantastic to find that people are listening to this all across the world. So I will stop sharing my screen now. If I can figure out how. Well, I've only got Paul share. How do you do stop share? Oh, there we go. I've seen it. It's popped up. There we go. So just a whistle stop tour there through some of the background. I've not got my video on. How rude. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so just a whistle-stop tour there through the website, the digital platform, what it offers, and there will be more functionality coming to that soon. It's going to continue to evolve. If there's anything that you don't think is on there that should be, or any ways to search it you would prefer, just get in touch and we can add those, because we're always making it better and improving upon the platform. And please do go and listen to the podcast and subscribe. We'd love to hear from you, and love if you've got any ideas for episodes or you'd like to appear as a guest, just get in touch. And yeah, contact Dr. Trester. I'm sure you've all got his address.
David, that's just great. Thank you very much indeed. So if we
And David, just before Andrew talks a little about training, there's a question come up in chat which was going to ask if any info shared with GP. I presume this is related to the colleague support line.
Oh, shared with GPs, like from the support line.
Yeah, so if somebody contacts us, you mentioned confidentiality, but I was just,
oh yeah,
people were wondering at what level would something be shared with the person's GP?
Sure. Okay, so it would only be shared with the GP if that was appropriate for the next step of their treatment pathway. So whilst it's with the colleague support line, they provide the intervention, they handle all of that. It's recorded on a system called iAptoSit, and like I say, it's very light touch and as anonymous as possible. So they don't really take any information if they don't need to. But if the person then needs some further help and support from that point and is then referred on to other services, at that point, if it was appropriate, the GP would be looped in at that point with the person's care, I believe.
with consent.
With consent, of course, and it would only be if it was actually required. And to be honest, if they're going to talking therapies or some other part of like the SFT, the mental health services, then actually it probably wouldn't be shared with the GP, if I'm honest, because it wouldn't be necessarily relevant at that point.
Thanks, David. And I know you're going to go on, Andrew, but just to say we've got about 8 minutes left.
Indeed. So a whistle-stop tour, if I may, of the training opportunities. So here we are back to the Somerset Emotional Wellbeing. React mental health training, bite-sized support for people. It's a 1.5 hour training for managers or others to be able to have conversations and psychologically conversations with teams and to signpost. And I've done the training. I highly recommend that. There's a bit more information, I think, on the website about that. And as David's already shown you that, I'm not going to spend any more time on that. So on the website, and suggest perhaps that every practice or every organization has at least one person from the managerial staff. That doesn't have to be the practice manager who does everything. Indeed, if practices and organizations have a wellbeing champion, they may wish to do some of this training. The next one I'd want to share with you as an opportunity is something that we're investing in called Thinking Pit Stops. This was started as a free offer for the NHS last year, and Somerset has invested in it for about 150 people so far earlier in the year, and it's now being rolled out to primary care. And it's a fascinating, deceptively simple intervention, which gives us a crucial strategic pause, takes us off sympathetic drive, takes us down onto parasympathetic, and in that space with somebody else's undivided attention, we find ourselves, when prompted by the most elegantly simple but devastatingly perceptive questions, problem solving all our issues. Problem solving the current issue that we wish to think about. How long does it take? About 10 or 12 minutes. And when you've got several people trained in your practice, then you can share with others. It's a good idea to have at least one person. What have people said about it? A mental recharge, a short burst of thinking space to help a busy person in difficulty solve issues through facilitated personal reflection. There are 3 tiers of training, and rookies is for anyone and everyone. And please think about this. I was speaking to a practice manager the other day, and she said, Andrew, we can't afford to invest in all these well-being things. And then she paused and she said, but we can't afford not to. We just have to. And so from personal experience, I would recommend the Thinking Pit Stops as one of the investments that you might like to make. It costs nothing. All of these training opportunities are free. It does require 4 hours of a morning on one of those 2 dates. There is a third one coming in November. Please, if this is of at all interest, I would be delighted to share a Thinking Pit Stops with anybody if you'd like to experience what one feels like. But please note these dates down, and please do consider who in your practice you'd like to book on the first one, and who you'd like to book on the second one, and the third day coming out later in November. If we're looking for many practices to have at least 2 people involved, and some practices I know are already interested in being beacon practices and taking it further. Once you've done your 4 hours training, there's an opportunity to really take it to another level with some Somerset resources of spotters who will take you further. So there we are. Suggest book several people on the November dates. Please, please, please. That's what we've just seen. So the next training offer is emotional logic, and this is a very elegant system of understanding loss emotions. It's developed by 2 GPs in South Devon, and it's a conversational personal skills of dealing with loss and these various phases that you see here that we might think as aspects of grief. They are actually the stepping stones to growth. We will put more on the website about this soon, but this training offer is coming very soon. There are 2 tiers on offer. One is an online learning booklet. It says module total under 3 hours. It's got about 8 separate modules, which are about anything between 15 and 20 minutes each. And so the aggregate is 3 hours, and a booklet can be provided as well. It applies to absolutely everything. I would say this is the 2 times table, or the ABC of managing our own emotions and understanding how to manage our own emotions. Excuse me. I haven't got slides on Connect 5. Connect 5 is training that's available right across the board, and this is for psychological savvy conversations, not just for managers, but for everyone. And I would highly recommend that at least 1 or 2 people consider the Connect 5 training from each practice. It's available for another few months, and it's all free. The other training opportunity that is coming is a coaching training, and this is, excuse me, this is across the ICS, but we've also got particular funds for primary care, and I think we've got at least 7 or 8 training places at level 5 coaching. So if anybody thinks that as part of their career development and a skill set they would like to have in order to having a coaching skill as we move towards a support and appreciation culture right across the ICS, and particularly in primary care, then please do come forwards. This support and appreciation culture is what we would aspire to, and it's what we're going to have by 2030. But like health, it doesn't happen by accident. So on Emotional Logic, we have 400 places for primary care. That's the website that David's told us all about and taken us right through to search for training. Heidi, who's kindly administrating, that's her email for any specific training, but you can access that through the website. I have mentioned coaching. I've obviously changed the slide set since I printed them off, so I've spoken about that already. And briefly, any questions? But I think, Martin, that we're nearly up to time at the 2 o'clock, but it's been very interesting and great privilege to share all of that. So how do you access the training for the Thinking Pit Stops? Please, I shall type the answer there, but please book in at the Somerset CCG ICS Workforce team at nhs.net. I'll type that in so that we've got it there. Please do come along. It's really such fun. It's probably the most interesting training I have done in ages. I can't spell workforce, so I'm just trying to do that on the
also, Andrew, just to say as well, we are going to be adding a booking system online to the somersetemotionalwellbeing.org website in the next few weeks at some point. So we'll put a big sort of communique out about that when it comes out. So yeah, in the meantime, email Andrew that address you just gave, and then hopefully in the near future you'll be able to do it through there as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Martin, for asking us. Thank you, David.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Andrew. And next month, long COVID after today's meeting, as a way of saying thank you to Andrew and a way of saying thank you to David and Lorna couldn't hear, visit and explore the website and make it a favourite. Download the Shiny Mind app and sign up. Add the colleague support number line to your telephone contacts, 0300 124 5595. Book a place on one or more of the training courses. Recommend all the above to work colleagues, manager and employer. Recommend the webinar recordings to colleagues, manager and employee. You can get this through SGPET, listen to some podcasts, and suggest that your practice, your organisation thinks about have a wellbeing champion, as it has had a carers champion, as it has had other champions in the past. There is no time to do this other than better now. Anyway, that's it. And thank you very much, everybody, for coming. And we're going to end the podcast now and end the recording. Big thanks for David, big thanks for Andrew, and a big thanks to you all for finding time, both for yourselves and those who you have influence and support to. And please do think about all the things we've just said about the website, about the podcast, about the telephone line, about Shiny Mind, about the training, because that will mean that this hour has been well spent by David, Andrew, and yourselves.
Thank you,
very
Martin.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martin.
Bye.
Take care, guys.
Bye,
Bye for now.
everyone.
We're going to end it now.